In episode 51, titled Stand Up Continuous Monitoring, we launch a program that turns once-a-year assurance into everyday awareness. Continuous monitoring is not a new tool. It is a steady rhythm that keeps risk visible while work is happening, not after. The purpose is simple and disciplined. See what matters early, prove what changed, and guide action before small issues mature into incidents. When teams recognize continuous monitoring as an operating habit rather than a project, cadence replaces chaos, and decisions stop relying on stale snapshots. This episode builds that habit from the ground up with clear objectives, defined roles, sensible cadences, living dashboards, and a small set of rules that cause evidence to flow where it can be believed and reused. The objectives of continuous monitoring should be written in ordinary language and reinforced until they sound like the mission statement for day-to-day security: visibility, early detection, and ongoing risk reduction. Visibility means you maintain a current picture of assets, patches, configurations, vulnerabilities, and exceptions tied to the business functions they protect. Early detection means the program notices drift, exploitable paths, or control failures before customers do, translating signals into timely action rather than curiosity. Ongoing risk reduction means your data shows a trend toward fewer aged findings, faster closure times, and fewer repeats, which proves improvement is durable. When these objectives are posted, taught, and measured, everyone knows why the program exists and how to tell if it is working. Roles come next because charts without people never move a metric. Defined owners for data sources and controls. Analysts who turn signal into judgment. Approvers who make risk decisions. And reporting leads who publish what readers actually use. The first mention of Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) should include who owns its rules, who tunes noise, and who signs off on rule retirements so blind spots do not creep in. Give the Plan of Actions and Milestones (POA&M) a single accountable steward who reconciles entries with scan outputs and change records. Make the reporting lead responsible for cross-team coherence so that operations, security, and leadership see the same story in the same week. Clear names attached to clear duties keep monitoring from dissolving into a well-intended inbox. Cadence transforms intentions into muscle memory, so publish schedules that everyone can plan around and that sponsors can test. Monthly vulnerability scans provide a predictable pulse for exposure data, with authenticated checks wherever feasible and documented exceptions when not. Quarterly reviews examine themes, repeat offenders, control maturity, and policy drift across environments rather than chasing single anomalies. Annual reassessments recalibrate scope, methods, and thresholds, and they validate the dashboards still represent the estate accurately after mergers, migrations, or architecture shifts. Tie each cadence to owners and artifacts, delivery dates, evidence identifiers, and a short summary to keep the rhythm audible. When cadences are known and kept, continuous monitoring becomes the quiet metronome that holds the program together. Dashboards anchor attention, but only when they show what matters to distinct audiences with a shared source of truth. Build views that track patch status against agreed service level targets, vulnerability counts by severity and age, and compliance exceptions mapped to controls and systems. Display the same identifiers used in inventories and in the POA&M so humans and machines can jump between screens and records without translation. Trend lines should be honest, including backlog age and closure velocity, not just counts. Add small narrative callouts that explain inflections, a patch train that slipped, a new class of misconfiguration, or a change in scanner policy. Good dashboards teach at a glance and invite action instead of encouraging vanity metrics that feel comfortable and prove nothing. Ticketing is the conveyor belt that turns findings into owned work, so integrate it tightly. Each new exposure should generate or link to a ticket with a single accountable owner, a due date proportionate to severity, and a reference to the originating evidence and environment. The ticket should point to the control intent and the business impact so the fix reads as more than a number to eliminate. When a ticket closes, require proof that the original replication steps now fail or that the scanner sees the corrected state, and carry that evidence into the POA&M automatically. This integration makes progress visible and traceable, which is the difference between a reassuring board and real risk movement. Without it, continuous monitoring becomes a spectator sport. Automation is where the program scales without losing fidelity. Establish reliable flows from scanners, from the SIEM, and from configuration and asset management systems into a consistent data model. Tag every record with stable asset identifiers, timestamps with time zones, and environment labels so joins are deterministic. Use lightweight validation to catch malformed fields, mismatched counts, or unexpected gaps the moment data lands. Automate enrichment where it helps decisions, business owner, criticality, data class, so prioritization is informed rather than improvised. The aim is not to automate judgment, it is to automate delivery of clean, comparable inputs to the humans who exercise judgment. When data arrives clean and on schedule, analysts spend time thinking instead of scrubbing. Thresholds translate signal into action, preventing drift from becoming exposure. Publish severity-based limits for maximum finding age, patch lateness, or configuration noncompliance, and pair each with automatic escalation rules. Define when a missed threshold triggers a retest, when it requires a temporary compensating measure such as access restrictions or heightened monitoring, and when the issue must be elevated to leadership. Document who receives the alert, who is expected to act within which window, and how proof of interim containment will be attached. Thresholds are not punishments. They are lines drawn on purpose so that everyone sees the same boundary and knows what happens when it is crossed. Clear thresholds make the program feel fair and predictable. Trend analysis is the narrative layer that turns measurements into learning. Look for repeated root causes, identity mismanagement, brittle deployment patterns, or weak change approvals that show up across systems. Track regressions, not only counts, to identify where controls slip back after appearing fixed, and then ask whether documentation, automation, or training is missing. Compare closure velocity across teams to find bottlenecks in approvals, testing, or access that are slowing remediations everywhere. Share these insights as short, specific observations tied to examples and owners, and revisit them in quarterly reviews to see if interventions worked. Trend analysis is where continuous monitoring proves it is not a scoreboard but a teacher. A monthly continuous monitoring package should be a predictable bundle. Scans with coverage and configuration context, POA&M updates with clean identifiers and evidence references, and change summaries that explain risk-relevant shifts. Include proofs of authentication for scans that require depth, and reconcile asset counts against your inventory with explanations for deltas. Note any deviations or exceptions that affect the month's picture and supply the compensating steps in force. Keep the package small, linked, and parsable so that assessors and sponsors can load it into their tools and your teams can reuse it without reformatting. When the bundle lands on time and looks the same every month, trust grows because the program looks like a system, not a scramble. Practice keeps the system honest, so rehearse a scenario where a service-level agreement is missed and the program responds. Suppose a critical severity exposure exceeds the allowed age. The monitoring queue raises an alert to the owner and approver within minutes. A temporary network restriction is applied to limit reachable paths, and a retest is scheduled after the proposed fix deploys. A brief stakeholder note explains the condition, the compensating measure, the retest plan, and the expected closure date, all using the same identifiers as the dashboard and ticket. The retest confirms resolution, the compensating control is retired, and the POA&M records the evidence with dates and names. The point is not drama, it is repeatability in the face of pressure. Document procedures in plain language and align formats with sponsor and project management office (PMO) expectations so that your monthly outputs can be consumed without translation. Write how scans are scheduled, how credentials are rotated, how exceptions are approved, how evidence is attached, and how dashboards are refreshed. Bake in Open Security Controls Assessment Language, OSCAL, or other machine-readable structures where they add value, and keep human-readable summaries for orientation. Version these procedures, record approvals, and train successors. Documentation is not a binder for audits. It is the instruction manual that keeps the program consistent when people change seats or when a migration alters the terrain. A quick review helps cement the frame. Objectives that say why the program exists. Roles that ensure someone owns each surface. Cadence that keeps the rhythm. Automation that delivers clean data. Thresholds that trigger action. And reporting that people actually use. If one of these elements weakens, the rest will feel heavier because humans will fill the gaps with effort. Healthy programs revisit this review each quarter and adjust where friction accumulates. The reminder is gentle but firm. Continuous monitoring works when it is small, regular, and honest, not when it becomes a sprawling catalog of everything that might be measured. In conclusion, the value of continuous monitoring is a calmer, faster, and more truthful security posture. Calm because rhythms and thresholds remove guesswork. Faster because clean data and integrated ticketing remove the weight between signal and owned work. More truthful because dashboards and packages are reconciled with inventories, identifiers, and evidence that stands on its own. With those benefits in reach, the next action is straightforward and empowering. Publish your continuous monitoring charter. Write the objectives, roles, cadences, thresholds, and reporting commitments on one page. Assign owners and put dates on the calendar. When the charter is real, the rhythm begins, and risk starts moving in the right direction every single month. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.